Have you ever lost an item that you knew exactly where it was, only to find it later? When you found it later, it could have been one of two things. Did you find it and realize that you had moved it to the second location after all? Or were you completely flabbergasted that it was moving altogether? Maybe you blame somebody else. After all, it couldn't have gotten up and walked away by magic. Could it have? We're going to explore this today using an everyday deck of playing cards. First thing, arbitrarily almost, we will give it a shuffle. I say that because it doesn't necessarily need a shuffle for what we're about to do, but it's nice and it looks pretty. So the first thing we're going to need are two constants. I like to use the simplest cards in the deck of playing cards, and that is a simple red card and a simple black card. I choose the aces, of course, because they are the easiest to remember. The next thing we're going to use is a constant card itself. Again, we'll focus on something a little simpler, like the threes. So if I sift through, I'm sure there are a few threes in this pack. Perfect. We'll focus on the threes. So, what we want to focus on to start is the reds. So we'll make a red pile over here and a black pile over here. How we're going to remember that is by placing our indication point face up in between the two cards. That makes this whole process a little bit easier to remember. But what would happen if I got rid of the views of those indication points? Well, all that you would have now is a frame of reference. In your brain, your framing would let you know which cards were in which area. But could your memory betray you? Well, let's find out. What would happen if I told you that in between these cards wasn't the card that you remembered? What if I told you there was no card at all? You wouldn't believe me, or maybe you would. So if I wave, you can see what about the cards themselves? Did you remember the black? Or did you think they were the red? This is a very interesting point, because without that frame of reference, we're not even sure. But can you even remember what you just saw? What if I told you that over here, there were actually only two cards, not three in the first place? And what if I told you they were completely different from the two cards that you remember? Would you be impressed? Completely different. And what if I told you the entire process was a little bit different than you remembered as well? Starting from beginning all the way into the end.